Hello, my name is Amadati Okufishola. Hope you guys are doing well. So we are continuing that conversation that we started yesterday, and the topic of the conversation was the culture of the use of animal in for critical thinking. And the topic that we're going to be dealing with is going to be sex and trauma and the need for modesty. And I'm going to be using different topics to try to give you guys, you know, a perspective to kind of look at this topic from. It's going to be different. And I'm going to be using subjects like anthropomorphism and anthropology. I'm going to be using um, ethnology. What else? So I think those three, if not more. So that's what we're basically doing. If you're interested in this type of conversation, right? I think that you should keep watching. And if you're not, I guess like I'm glad that you stopped by. So again, this topic is surrounding peace and unity. What are the factors that are injuring us from actually attaining peace and unity? World peace or peace within the family or within two people, three people, like what is really happening. And I'm so glad because like we just talked about George Orwell, 1984, and we talked about, spiritual connotations or things that is literally affecting, the idea of unity and things that are beyond, the human well, I wouldn't say it's beyond the human consciousness, but some things that have to do with manipulation, right? Power, control. That is still the conversations that we're going to be having. I don't know how many more of these conversations we're going to be having, but I feel like we're going to be having more of this literary review, right? So I'm going to be talking about this topic, really focusing on the museum. We're going to use the institution of a museum to try to give light to, what's to this conversation, to this topic, and to better understand from that perspective. And I was so graced to be able to go for for a lecture in the Museum of Fine Arts. And I attended a lecture by Clementine Delise. She's an amazing activist, first of all. And one of the goals that she's actually chasing is, for knowledge transmission instead of secrecy. And she's achieved so much in her life. Like she's achieved so much. And she's helped to build different museums. And I believe that there was one that she was in charge, which is in Frankfurt. And she speaks so proudly about it, even though she said that she was fired because of her method of, execution management and because she was really trying to make a change. And I'm super excited about that conversation that we're going to be having today. But before we even get into anything, I want to talk about an article that, you know, I stumbled upon because when I finished the article, there was something was, something was actually coming to my mind, and that was monkey they walk, baboon they chop. I can't remember when I actually like literally said those words. And I was like, this is quite interesting. What does that mean? And I literally knew that it was the Holy Spirit that impressed that in my spirit, right? But in my mind, I was like, oh, that's quite interesting. What does that essentially mean? And so I kind of like was, curious and I was asking questions, right? And I asked Google, like, what do you mean? Like, what does that even mean, right? So, and then I stumbled upon this page. Ignore the really weird ads that are there. So this article is by, first of all, is by Akin Tokumbo Adejumo. And the name of the article, excuse me, or should I say the title of the article is The Animal Farm, Monkey They Work, and Baboon They Chop. Okay. And these are the faces of Nigerians looking in hope for a change to happen in their country. And they're looking for a better opportunity, better governance. They're looking for a better future. This is what Akintokunbo Adejumo has to say. Nigerian leaders on Friday, 28th February 2014, called on Nigerians to work harder towards ensuring the country's unity, with ex-President Olusegun Obasanjo averring that Nigeria will not break up. Former President Chief Olusegun Obasanjo said for Nigeria to have survived the first 100 years, despite the various challenges of nation building, the country would not break up. They should tell us what they mean by to work harder. To me, this means that Nigerians should keep slaving and dying for their masters and oppressors to keep Nigeria one for them to continue losing. Also, recently, the Senate president bemoaned the continuous activity of terrorists ravaging parts of Nigeria and of the country and pleaded with citizens to revolt against the orchestrated plot to destabilize the country. Isn't it absurd and crassy irony that those destroying our nations are the same ones that lecture the same masses to refrain from destabilizing the nation? They want the poor, common Nigerians that they have impoverished and debased to fight their war for them. They want us to be their cannon fodder while they stay in their comfortable mansions and drive around in their armored cars. The same Nigeria that they love so much, they plundered and are still plundering and failed to build into greatness as its citizen ravaging for food to survive. The same Nigeria whose youth and young graduates are walking listlessly and idly on the streets without jobs. The same Nigeria where people sleep on the streets. The same Nigeria where if you do not have money to pay, doctors will not treat you in the hospitals. The same Nigeria where the students barely learn anything in the state schools because of the classrooms are dilapidated and the laboratories are not equipped. The same Nigeria where when you drive on the roads in the morning, you're not sure of coming back alive. They are living in a dreamland. Our leaders are simply the greatest threats to the existence of Nigeria. Many nations have lost hope in them. My concern is how to awaken the consciousness of the followers into action. And it goes on and on about you can imagine like he's an activist really, and he's trying to kind of provoke the people to um to do something. Like, can you do something about what's going on, right? And we see the NSAR's protest about just how Nigerians went to really advocate for their rights and their rights to for food, their rights to their basic human rights, right? And what happened in the process, like the genocide that happened. And so that's a really like sad occurrence happening. But how can we link that into the conversation that we're having? And remember, yesterday we were talking about how humans kind of expect that animals should play a role in deciding whether they will survive or whether they will be eaten or not. And again, if you look at the hierarchy between animals and humans, the mindset or the understanding is that humans are more superior and animals are just like lower beings, right? They're basically like, there's just a difference in power. And if you think about the relationship between, this elite people of a certain country or citizens, right? They don't really consider themselves as citizens. They will say that they're more like leaders, right? This elite people and versus like those ones that you saw, the photos of which you saw of them licking and crying for help, right? You can see that the power, the power dynamics, has changed, or you can see like the evidence of like the differential in power. And so in the from what the authors were saying in terms of like, relationship between animals and humans, one of the things that they mentioned was that animals ought to be, they ought to serve, they ought to perform and make themselves useful so that they don't get eaten. And you can see in that conversation in the article that Adejuma was saying how the Nigerian leaders are they're basically acting that same thing now. Like, it's literally funny about how they were saying the Nigerians should work harder to create unity in the country. And the question was like, what unity are we fighting for if we remain one and you end up doing the same thing that you're doing? So we're trying to keep you guys as one, Nigeria as one, for you guys to continue doing the harm that you're doing. And so going back to that illustration of anthropomorphism to try to understand it better, so it's basically saying that performance is important for self-preservation, right? So in the sense that Nigerians don't really understand that, hey, like we're trying to help you. The leaders are saying, like, we're trying to help you. Like we can basically deprive all of you of like your basic needs, right? We can basically like annihilate all of you, right? And what you're doing right now is that you're serving us. And so you're keeping us happy so that we don't annihilate you guys. And I think that's really interesting. That's a very, very interesting topic, right? About power and about the the subject, or should I say the receiver's preferred attitude when subjected to oppression, right? They're supposed to be quiet. They're supposed to not talk back. They're supposed to just do and obey, right? And you can talk about this in another, look at another power dynamic, which is like the husband and the wife, right? It is expected that the wife should be submissive, but then the husband really, what he understands in his head is that the wife should be subservient to him. Like, you're supposed to be a slave for me. But that's not what the Bible says. Okay. And I know I'm using different analogy to try to give you guys little clues on how this corruption is in our society today, right? And it's just the fact that, some people, some group of people, and if you've learned anything from George Orwell, 1984, is that these people, right, they are a collective. They are not an individual. Like the people in power, they are like it's an inner party, and there's also, we know that there is an outer party as well, and we know that there are the ones that don't have any power at all, okay, which are the people, right? Well, they say they don't have any power, but we know that the people are the ones that will eventually cause about change. But I don't see anywhere in the Bible where that ever happened, right? To bring about like to bring about that unity, between people to drag about the achievement of a certain goal. Like it's something that is like pretty difficult. And we're going to talk about the factors that are blocking unity, because what a lot of people don't understand is this is a battle for survival, right? And it's not something that like you consciously kind of like you consciously enter if you're walking by the standards of the Lord. Like the Lord has placed us, higher, to think higher, to be higher, to have the grace to be able to, talk about these conversations and the joy to literally analyze and things like that. There's some people that are very, very deep in depression right now. But we thank the Lord that we're not, okay? But the question is like, what's actually going on? Okay. It seems like the people that do have a lot are not content. They feel like if they just like relax, which was what George Orwell said, they feel like if they relax, that the power that they have will be stripped away from them. And in order for them to keep that power, there has to be an extreme amount of control and manipulation. Okay. So again, this situation is not like it's not an individual thing. This power that we're talking about, it's not like, or like it's just one person that's trying to be in power for like decades and decades. No, we're talking about collective force of people that are sitting on power. And they're basically sitting on power at the detriment of other people because they want the resources for themselves. They will keep that linkage intact and they will keep everything intact for that fixed system to keep running, and they will do whatever it takes to keep that fixed system going. And you can see that this is a battle of survival between the higher versus the lower. Okay. The higher citizens are saying that we can just annihilate you guys. Like, we're all fighting for resources. We've managed to achieve unity, right? And you guys haven't, because you don't know that we're attacking you, but we're here, you know? And we can kill you anytime. We can do whatever we want to do at any time. But what you guys should be doing, you should be thanking us because we've not. And you should serve us in the process so that we can be happy. So whatever scrap that we give you from our table, we give you as dogs. Okay. So that's the mold, that's the ideology, right? These are pigs on the table. Do you get what I mean? They're pigs on the table. They eat, they eat, they eat. They're fat pigs. So the question I want to ask now is, how can we change the mold? How can we change the mold? I'm gonna dance between like many different themes, many different topics. But we know for sure if we study history and we go back into like what's been happening, like back from like we're in the 21st century, what happened in the 17th century, 18th century, 19th century, we'll see, the study of the elites, like they obviously, like if you have money, you want people to know about you, and like you want to tell your story, you want to show off. It's just normal. So they pretty transparent to a degree. And they are pretty honest about like, the things that they dabble in. I don't remember what the Renaissance age. I know that yeah, they were very heavy on drugs, I believe. There was even one time, even in Canada, they were heavy on opium, right? These drugs has been something that is very common in the European world, in the Western world. And so with drugs comes like, supposed higher level of consciousness, and it comes with, metaphysics, right? And I think it's pretty interesting, like this conversation, like, oh my God, with knowledge, like people gaining knowledge and thinking that, you have more resources. When you get the knowledge, because you have more resources, you can actually weaponize the knowledge and use it for your own agenda. So that is basically what they did, right? And we'll see this elite, taking things that don't belong to them, right? Through manipulation, control, different avenues in which they will take this knowledge and they will weaponize it for more exploitation and, control. And this is why the museum is very important, because the museum is basically like a way to kind of look into the times. And one of the things that we're actually talking about today is really understanding the times, understanding our times. So I'm pretty excited, and I want to share, my experience at the Museum of Fine Arts. And I think, it's fun. It was fun. It was a fun experience, right? Just give me 1 second here. All right. Let me start with the 1 second here. Okay. Interesting. Okay. All right. Can I start with this? You cannot really see the entire screen. Let me see if I can use a better screen. Just 1 second here. Mm. Let me see if this is gonna work this time. Okay, perfect. Okay.
Permet à des femmes réfugiées de dormir dans le musée. Et imaginez-vous un petit peu comme de quoi ça pouvait avoir l'air que d'être couché d'un côté de cet escalier et de parler à la femme en face de vous en regardant en même temps des peintures.
Okay. If you don't speak French, it's okay. I don't hold it against you. So I'm just gonna stop sharing and then I'm gonna share you a couple of photos um of my time there. All right. I'm thinking like maybe it'd be better to do sort of a slide next time. So this is one photo of, so she's just showing us like the arts and yeah, it's gonna show you randomly and then we'll just touch on them. So this is something that we're gonna talk about later, okay? So yeah, again, we're using the concept of a museum to better understand the things that are blocking us from actually gaining unity and peace as a people. What are the factors that have been used against us as a human race, as people that don't really have, much political power, right? Um, what are the forces against us in a way? So what I want to do is I also want to share um a painting, right? I want to share a painting by, I don't know, is his name here? Yeah, his name is Travis Sheelan. And it's called An Owl. It's Travis Sheelan and Owl from I made it in 2019. Okay. All right. So funny enough, I actually want to take a break right now. Okay. But anyways, like you can see this painting, and I don't know what you see right off the back. You can see an owl, you can see a machine, and you can see a guy that's kind of like sort of like helping to, control the machine, show direction for the guy right in the machine and where to actually place the scene. Um, and so we're kind of looking at it from like a more spiritual point of view, like this art. And if you know anything about indigenous arts, like they usually have some type of spiritual connotation to them. And so in my discussion or interpretation of this art, right, you can see like there was something, a very big owl. And this owl is not something that is usual. Owls are not like really big like this. This owl is kind of like just sitting there, and just has his fingers, like his leg, should I call it? I don't know what that is, right? I don't study birds, but like it's kind of you put like you can see that around the machine, right? Um, and you can see like there's the land, and you can see like a lot of like, you know, specificity, planning going on. And in my interpretation, it can, this right here just kind of is very thought-provoking. Like, why is this thing here in something that's supposed to be working, you know, mechanically? And this owl for me symbolizes some control over this machine, right? The owl is literally like putting its claws on the a vital part of the machine that is supposed to make it to move, right? To move and to do its regular duties of carrying the sand and placing it in another location. And it kind of like explains like the human, um, the human being almost like explaining that there are factors, there are forces that are controlling this thing called the mission. And with the era of like social media, with the era of AI, we know that, This is how the control literally seeps in, right? But not just that as well, like also in terms of like metaphysics. Um, so I just wanted to kind of point that out, like the question is, are emotions really like ours? George Orwell also said something about how language really, is a way to control human behavior, is a way to control human emotions. It's really a way to control humans. And one of the things that I actually made sure that I highlighted in the paper was also the role of language in, you know, the language in the relationship between humans and animals. And so language, when altered, language when manipulated, can hinder, can hinder growth, can hinder self-development, can hinder unity. It can also bring about conflict. And so what happens when people are unable to actually communicate anymore? What happens when a nation or people of a certain or different ethnic group or people of different classes or just different people? What happens when like two people, right? Forget about the ethnicity and everything like that. Just what happens when people are unable to communicate anymore, right? We're unable to relate to each other anymore. We're not able to relate to each other anymore. And that is a disconnect that is not something that is factoring into bringing about unity at all. And the whole conversation that we're having today is on restitution. And we're using the museum as a point of contact to really understand what this is about. And so Clementine Delise actually talks about how the museum is, they're buildings, right? And the museums, right, in the Western or European countries usually would go to collect arts from different parts of Africa in like, different parts of the world, Asia, all over, right? Which she called it a cult of possession, right? For the main purpose of actually gaining control of people, right? Getting more information to be able to exploit them even more. And oftentimes what they did was that they would gather all of this information. They'll gather all of the objects, right, which is kind of information, right? Gather all of them, and then reconstruct those items. And when they do that, they'll try to study it and, and they're sort of like obsessed about, this, right, this art of collection, right? Um, yeah. Anyways, I am going to take a break. Okay. Just keep looking at the artwork. I'm gonna be very quick. Okay. Just give me 1 second here. Give me 1 second. Mm. All right, I'm back, guys. I am back. Okay. Just 1 second. Just want to make sure that everything is working fine. Okay, I'm just going to stop sharing. I'm Okay, cool. Okay, so pardon 1 second here. All right, so I'm back. And so while, all this is going on, right? While they're doing all of this, you know, taking all of this artifacts from this other nations, the main reason why they were doing it was because of control. And whilst Nigerians are kind of screaming to the Nigerian government that, hey, this is what you're doing, like, why would you do this and stuff like that? The Nigerian leaders are actually also competing with the European leaders or, elites as well. They're kind of competing with them as well to safeguard what they have, Um, and it's this back and forth dance, right? Okay. And so, yeah, and they try to, create collaboration, trade, capitalism helps to, drive about dialogues and conversation between leaders from different nations. Um, which is like, I don't know if it's a good thing for the citizens because to a lot of Nigerians, it just feels like things are getting worse. And so they do have to spend a lot of money in the process of like competing, right? You cannot compete without spending money. Do you know what I mean? Like if this one president has like how many jets, like you have to step it up. Do you know what I mean? Like anyways, that's not even really the competition. I just wanted to give like, an highlight on like what really is going on, right? That, this whole situation right now is not really about the people. It's about like, maintaining power and keeping the power at the hands of the people that have it, which is really the same thing. So it's about possession. So when they actually get this artifact, like they want to own it, they want to use it to better understand them, and usually and actually weaponize it, against the people that they've taken it from. And so Clementine Delise talked about how 26 objects in Benin City in Nigeria is yet to be returned, right? And she talked about even how the items were actually taken, which is like we know that they are idols, right? How they were taken was missionaries actually went to Nigeria and they preached to them and they told them that, hey, like, this this artwork or idols, molten images should be destroyed, was what they told them. And so they gathered all of this, graven images, idols, or like objects, you would call them, or whatever it was, this, described as. They grabbed them, and then they were like, you know what, we're going to go and destroy it in Europe. And so while they were on the journey of actually going to destroy it, what they did was the director of like, the missionary would usually call another collector and say that, well, I have all of this, art pieces, like, do you want to buy them? And then they usually like, would be sold to like, places and, eventually would end up in the museum, right? And so they would actually get money from this, right? Um, so Nigerians don't really know like the value of what they have is basically like that. They don't understand the value of what they have. And if they knew the value of what they have, right? I'm just giving you the idea. I'm not saying that molten image or idols are a good thing, right? If they do understand the value of what they have, like after they've gotten the right information about those things, like would they have made the decision to say that, you know what, like I want to give these things away. Okay. Like I want to give these things away. And so she argues that indigenous people, right? Nigerians, people from Benin Republic, Congolese, Guineans, wherever you get in the arts from, that is not from your nation, like the indigenous people, right, should be able to make their own decisions regarding their own artwork. They should be the ones to destroy the art pieces. They should be the ones to destroy their molten images, right? And not the people that are coming to assimilate them into a culture that is not theirs, okay, was the conversation. And again, we obviously know that, and I'm not really touching on the mystical things that are really going on in the background. I kind of showed you the painting, but that painting can also be interpreted in another way as well. So, but that's why I left. I sort of like, wanted you to kind of see it and interpret it your own way. Um, so yeah, like give the people the right to be able to make the decisions regarding like how to dispose them, or give them all the information, all transparency, like no cachet, no secrecy at all. Like tell them like these are the people that could possibly buy it. Like tell them everything that, tell them everything. They can sell it instead of like, you know, tell them everything. Or empower them, give them a means to find it out themselves. But that's not what he did. And so now the object now ends up in a museum. And again, I told you what they do with those objects, right? But they never actually introduce an indigenous person to come and interpret those objects for them, right? Because if you bring in an indigenous person, like it's kind of like, what are you trying to do? Are you trying to assimilate us into your culture type of thing? So they kind of want I'm guessing like that's what if it was me, like, it to be, that would be my own understanding, right? And that's something that's the point of view that I would kind of like understand it as when that is what's happening in front of me. Like you want someone that, has the same like level of intellect, right? Or education, just like the way if they don't allow international students to work in Canada and like or they do and they would require more certification. And yeah, it's kind of like very similar things. They do have some type of like standards that they're trying to reach, but in terms of like art and art interpretation, it's like, where did you take it from? But I don't really care. So, Clementine Delise talks about the fact that there needs to be polycultural interpretation or multidisciplinary interpretation of art pieces that are not originally from, a nation. So someone that is indigenous, indigenously connected to that artwork should be the person that would be giving them and educating the people of what the art piece is all about. And all of this process should be done in the goal of actually bringing about restitution. And so talking about restitution, we're talking about like, restoration, right? And she talks about the problem that is really facing, um, people that are not from a culture trying to interpret an art piece that is not from, their culture is like there is room for biases and racism, right? Because you're biased, and if anything, science in itself is actually very biased as well. But is science still used? Yes, and that's what we're talking about in the topic of AI and social media, right? Like we need to pay attention to the programmer, we need to pay attention to machine learning, like who is the person that is actually controlling the AI to really controlling AI, and also like that is really important. Let's just stop there. Who is the person controlling AI? That is important. And we know that these are big companies, these are like people, programmers that are doing this. But we need to question their own ideologies and what agenda are they trying to pass across? Like why are you doing what you're doing? Do you know what I mean? Like there's a reason why. What is their intentions? And have those people been tested to really know like their agenda? Like that is really important. Because at the end of the day, if you're coding something, you're gonna code what you know. Like you're gonna code, you know, your beliefs. You're gonna code what you understand. And you're really coding for people. You're coding for the users. And so whatever you are is like whatever you are is what you're actually like saying out to people. So if you're a white racist stud, right, you would end up like dishing out racist comments or racist posts to people, because AI machine can only reflect human programming. Okay. So one of the things about, restitution is really about restoration, I said. The idea of knowing that something has been removed that you want. So Clementine Delis went to Nigeria, and they were really focused on, like, she was asking questions about restoration because that is really what she's passionate about, to help with decolonization of, colonized countries. Um, and she started to ask the questions like, what does restoration mean to you? And a lot of people didn't really have any knowledge on, restitution. So restitution was the term she used. And then she gave them an assignment like, oh, like I want you to go into your home and then like, try to get a few pieces of just take a photo, like take a photo of what is like valuable, 7 things that are valuable to you. And then when they had gotten all the results, they found that, the things that they have that are not really valuable, or things that are literally like not really like, essential, like a photo, a family photo. Is it really essential? Like not really, like, so things that you can actually do without, but they're actually your valuables. And so that explains the reason why a lot of Nigerians don't really think about, restitution, because, the valuables that was taken from them are really like things that they don't essentially need, but is actually valuable in their journey, in their emotional maturity. It's valuable in their identity, connecting to their roots. It's like this, it's really that thing that will literally like spark something in them in terms of like creativity, in terms of like even survival, in terms of like in all area of their lives, but these things are not essentially things that are like or super essential. They can do without them. They can survive without them, but can they really thrive without them? And so this is a state where like a lot of Nigerians are like, barely, they're surviving, but they're not thriving. And I kind of want to talk about, I want to talk about trauma, and one of the things that, I've been learning about trauma, one of the things that I've been learning about trauma is the fact that a traumatic person, might escape, the traumatic environment, situation. Maybe it's a bad breakup, traumatic, toxic relationship, or, very toxic family cycle, um, abusive childhood. You might grow up, end up being an adult, right? And still being an adult, feel all those feelings, and nothing about you has changed except like the environment. And you begin to like have those coping mechanisms that you usually would have, when you were young, because of you still that same person, you're not healed. Okay. So what trauma really does is like trauma actually takes from us. And we don't really understand, like, when, like, we don't understand the gravity of things that are really done to us. And so it's oftentimes just tend to like mask them. And the issue on colonialism, right, is bad enough. Okay. It's very, very bad. The physical violence, emotional violence, even like the spiritual violence as well, financial abuse, violence. It was a whole round violence. Like there was a lot of like witchcraft, metaphysics. There's a lot of like wicked activities going on. So spiritually it wasn't safe. if you check the story of the Congo people on how like they were actually colonized, like the way the white man came and took over is funny. Like it's kind of like a joke. Like, are you joking? Like he literally like, I don't know what he did. I don't know. I'm not exactly sure what he did, but he had lied to them that he was not just a human being. Like they told them that they were not just human beings, that they were some sort of gods or something. I don't know what powder or cream that they used to cream their body that day, but they believed them. The king believed them. So these things are not normal. Like they're actually not normal. And it's that power struggle that we're talking about. And I know that a lot of people have to be aware that they have gone through levels of violence in their lives. Because if you never actually accept the fact that you've gone through a certain level of violence, then you will never really know. And again, one key word that you should know is that all of these things that's going on is a cult of possession of whatever, organization they are, a cult of possession of the British Empire, a cult of possession of the European Museum, a cult of possession of the Canadian government. And in regards to that, it's about amassing immigrants without really having any plans for them. So you're just amassing them, getting information about those people, keeping the people there, but you're using them, right? You're using immigrants, right? You're using immigrants for your own power so that you can amass more wealth, but you're not offering them nothing, nada, nichts. So there is a reduction happening. And this is the conversation that we're having about colonialism, that colonialism, slavery is still going on. Slavery is still within. People are not thriving. If you think that you're happy, the truth is that you could be a lot happier. And I think that it's very important that we have this conversation so that we can hear as a people. I'm not promoting the fact that we should go out there with placards and I'm just saying that we need to be able to want to bring about restoration in our homes. Because one of the things that Clementine Delise said was that let's look at our homes. Okay, let's look at our homes and let's look at the things that are valuable to us. Do you value your family? What has happened to things in your life? Can you try to understand someone that you think has really hurt you and kind of gain insights that will help on your own healing journey so that you don't replicate the same thing to your own children? Are you wanting to heal? Healing is not an easy thing. Healing is it takes a boldness to want to heal. It's an effort that you have to take to being even though I have everything I think I do, right? But there is something that is not essential in my life that I need to thrive. And for example, it can be virtue. And if we look at this in the more spiritual point of view, right? If we look at this in a more spiritual point of view, you'd see in the topic of metaphysics of people whose identities are being shattered because of severe engineering and propaganda. Engineering through, again, dreams that's spoken about in George Orwell, 1984, using metaphysics, people being targets. People are now possessions. I remember there was this woman, I don't know, let me see if I can get the reference here, that was placed in a museum for people to watch. She's an African woman. It's a fetish. Her name is Sarah Bartman. Let me share my screen and I'm going to share with you an image of Sarah Bartman. So this is Sarah Bartman, right? She's regarded as something valuable, a scene of fascination, a typical African woman. Sarah Batman died in 29 December 1815, but her exhibition continued. A brain and skeleton and sexual organs remained on display in a Paris museum until 1974. Her remains were repatriated and buried until 2002, brought to Europe seemingly on false pretenses by a British doctor. Stage named the Hottentot Venus. She was paraded around freak shows in London and Paris, with crowds invited to look at her large buttocks. Today, she is seen by many as an epitome of colonial exploitation and racism, of the ridicule of commodification of Black people. It's no longer just Black people. It's about all people of different ethnicities. It's about people of different races. Okay? And this is because of colonialism. People have now become commodities, just that the way that it was mentioned also just yesterday about how animals are also like they are commodities today. Today, she is seen by many, right, as an epitome of colonial exploitation and racism. Anyways, we're going to stop there on that note. But isn't it sad, like what's going on, right? It's quite interesting, like what the extent to which the elite, the people in power, right, in this earth, the rich, would take to maintain that level of power. And I think, again, that propaganda is oftentimes like, said that, we're not trying to do, and we're here to help you. I remember like a clip from Obasanjo, just talking about, I think there was a fire or something in parts of Lagos, and I don't know if it was Lagos specifically, and they were demanding that it comes to, kind of like address them regarding what was happening and to bring about, restoration in that community. And he came and he stood on top of a car, and then he was basically talking now, why did you ask me to come here? I'm not supposed to come here. Me being here, did it solve anything? And I've actually delegated the tax to one of my colleagues. He's going to help you guys, give you guys money and everything like that. Whereas like there is not about money. Leadership, like it wasn't about money. It's about a leader presence being there to assure the people that all was going to be fine. It's to assure them that it's caring, to care. Imagine like something crazy happened like that. And the first thing that came in Obasanjo's mouth was that without lack of empathy, it didn't even empathize with the people. It just was like it's a burden, like you're stressing me out. Like bad things happen to people every day. Like get over it. You know what I mean? Like, and this is why men need to begin to develop their emotions. You need to develop that part of you, empathy, to be able to empathize with people, because without empathy, you cannot be a good leader. Without empathy, you cannot serve. We do need healing. We do need wholeness in our communities today. The secrecy has to stop. People need to have all the reinforcement they need to be able to make decisions about their future, decisions about their life. And this topic is about power. And again, we're going to transition quickly into the main topic that we're having today, which is about, sex and trauma, right? And the questions that I have for you today is, how can I get to know you? Like questions that you should probably ponder, right? Is about getting to know someone better, better. Questions are, how can I get to know you better, right? Remember, this topic is about unity and peace. How can I know you better? How can I promote or influence vulnerability among, someone that is closed up, right? What is the future? What is the future of humanity going to be like? Is social media causing much harm than good? Who are these people controlling social media? Look at take a look at your Instagram for 5 minutes, which is something I just thought that would really help. Look at your Instagram for 5 minutes and tell me, what do you think the app is trying to make you to be? Remember that social media, AI, all these things are literally like controlled and designed for users to bring about a certain or desired output, whether it's well, one of the economic value for what they're for why they're doing what they're doing is to bring about consumerism, more profit for them. But we know that there is an underlying political reasons why, why they code the way they code. So that is something that we need to also look into, not just on one aspect of why they're doing what they're doing, but also like look at other aspect of like why they're doing what they're doing and how is it going to affect me, right? And the future generations for sure. So what are the roles of social media, right? Do you think AI or social media helps to nurture human trauma rather than act as a therapist, right? Does it help to nurture your human trauma? In other words, is social media consumption better than getting a therapist? Okay, that's pretty interesting. Let me say the question again. Do you think like social media consumption is better than getting a therapist? Are we really fit to be any are we really fit to be in any human relationship, right? Are we a safe place? Are we a safe place? One author whose book I'm actually reading now. Let me see if I can quickly look at her work. Um, okay. Anyways, let me see if I can quickly go through it real quickly. 28. Her name is Gillian O'Shea Brown, and she wrote the book on healing complex post-traumatic stress disorder. And one of the things that she said was that you cannot be creative, and you cannot be creative in an unsafe environment. You cannot be creative you cannot be creative in an unsafe place. And usually places can be, a person. A safe place can be a person. Are you a safe place? Or a safe place can be even a location, right? It can be even your mind. Is your mind a safe place? Okay. So how do you know you are a safe place? If you say you're a safe place, how do you know? How do you know that that's true, right? Do you get feedback? And who do you get feedback from? Are the people in your life authorized to give you proper assessments and feedbacks? Is it something that you actually like are open to? Do you like ask for feedback once in a while, or do you like you need to be able to trust people obviously before you ask them for feedback, right? And the next question is, when is creativity too much in a relationship, right? That one is also a good question to ask. And should creativity in a relationship be supervised? Like, should there be someone that will come, like a therapist, to kind of like gauge and see like where you guys are at in your relationship and talk about like any, trauma response that has been kind of resurfacing or surfacing in the past, like say 6 months, or like a traumatic event that happened, and you know, how is that really impacting your relationship? Talk about your wins, the successes in the relationship, things that you were able to kind of overcome, and new things that you kind of knew, or just about your partner, things like that. So you can see that there's a lot of like language and communication in human relationship development. And relationships really are really crucial for prosperity. They're crucial for, sanity. They're crucial for like maintaining wealth, crucial for evolution, crucial for basic human um basic well it's good too. Human relationship is good in regards to even our relationship with God as well. So now that you kind of have those questions, which I'm going to put those questions in the description bar below. And really, this topic again is to address peace builders, right? Peace building, and it uses human interaction as a focal point. Okay. So now shifting from like the museum concept to like really more of like, humans and human interactions. Like so far, we made interactions like growing up, like, and we know that those interactions that we had while we were children does have a big impact on like on our lives, it does have a big impact on how we kind of see the world and how we react to the people in our lives, the world itself. And so, and again, I give the example of like someone going through a really traumatic experience while they were growing up and changing or coming out of that traumatic situation or environment, but still having that, and but still being that same person that was, 10 years ago that was sexually abused, right? That felt helpless, still being that person. So the part of the healing journey to bring about, restitution is addressing those things. Well, how do you actually bring about restitution in your life, like in your old age? It's through what we're talking through human interaction, right? Through human interaction. And this is not one topic that we're going to be talking about like just today and just dishing it out. I'm wanting to strike curiosity in you so that you can go out there to find, the solution to whatever that you're going through. For me, like I've gone through really traumatic situations in my life. Um, and I've pretty much shared those, well, a chunk of those things on my channel. Like I've shared a chunk of it on my channel, dealing with like, abuse, growing up in in a violent household, domestic violence, being exposed to a lot of like trauma, even growing up, rejections. I could keep going. Do you know what I mean? I could keep going. I just didn't really feel like as if like I was cared for. I didn't really feel like as if like, I didn't really feel loved, even though it was like right in front. I didn't really feel it because of like the hole that was dug was just too deep for anyone to even feel it. And I remember like even in my first, second year of university, like I felt that hole. Like I felt very, very lonely in my life, and I felt like nobody was, even though they were around me, they never really got to me to see me for me and to really relate to me. There was never anybody that was, I could say that was my person. Um, and yeah, like it's crazy. And recently, like I've just been thinking, which is like the whole conversation. And I know that the conversation that we're having is to lead to healing, right? Because you cannot be on yield and say that you want to be a peaceful person. Like God is really wanting to bring a lot of us into a place of healing, into the next stage of our lives. And this conversation is not to give you a solution, it's to basically tell you that there is actually a problem. Like there's a problem. A lot of us are traumatized. And so I'm going to be talking about sex, guys and girls, like, you're growing up, you're having sex with people. You don't really care about like, what's happened in the past. Like you're just pretty much in the zone, in the moment. And life is just happening, you kind of getting pleasure. And then all of a sudden, what seems to be your sexual partner just didn't really have the ability to really connect with you and bond with you. And so what happens is like, oh, it's labeled as a friend with benefit situation. And so you that are needing that love and whatever, like you end up being heartbroken over and over and over again. And it's that repeated cycle of rejection. And so but the question is like, what is actually going on? Why are these two people like attracted to each other, first of all? And like, what is really going on? There are a lot of people that really have sexual intercourse with people, but they have it as a trauma response. And so again, we're talking about trauma and sex. So we're using human interactions as a focal point to discuss peace building, but we cannot discuss peace without discussing ourselves. So I'm just going to talk about the final, right? Before getting to the real nitty-gritty of the conversation, is just like what we did was we talked about the outer cycle, like of or the outer cycle or circle of what's really going on in terms of like the government. You use Nigeria as an example of like, this is the people, like this is what they're doing, because they also experiencing like trauma in their lives. Because you can imagine why someone would want to sit on something like, it's like, it's not normal, like there's something really like beyond them that's actually working against them, right? It's sin. Okay, so like there's this people, right, that are like really hurting other people, right? Other people that are hurt are hurting other people, the people that are hurt are hurting other people. So it's like, if I have more power, I have the ability to hurt you. So everyone is like fighting for more power, because like, if anyone's gonna punch me, I want to be the person doing the punching. I don't want to be the person that is punched in the face. Like, do you get what I mean? That's why guys are like, you know what, like that emotions thing, like, rah, I'm not getting into that. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'd rather be the one doing the punching, and do you know what I mean? Like, getting into it. And so what happens is like, women that are very much fragile and vulnerable, um, are the ones that are really like taking the punches, yeah. And especially like men, when they go to work, like their bosses like that is like shouting, and maybe the boss is even like a female that's also like has this very masculine energy that's like, don't freaking mess with me, I'm gonna fire you. And she probably is like, maybe even a Potiphar's wife, like trying to get him fired and things like that, frustrating him. It's like, comes home, and that frustration is like, and you see this woman that's like, trying to literally impress you and everything like that. But it's just like, rah, like, I just, your species like just did that to me. And we don't really get it. We don't really understand like why. And sometimes like you can act a certain way, and then you're asking yourself that, what the freak? Why did I just do that? Like, what's happening? And so, as I was meditating, like, and just reflecting, one thing that came to my mind is like, when somebody hurts you, if a female hurts you, you're not just upset about the person that hurt you, you're upset about the female species. Okay. Like that's the thing about trauma, is that if somebody hurts you, like you are looking for characteristics that is identical to that person and like literally hurt you. And with identity comes with physical attributes, it comes with like character, it comes with like, mannerism, it comes with personality, it comes with a lot of things. And to a traumatized person, like that is literally a cue to like take your power back in a way. Okay. First of all, take your power back, one, or either you want to do that or you just want to defend yourself and protect yourself. Okay. Um, and so we don't really know this, right? Or it's kind of like in our subconscious. And part of self-awareness is kind of knowing that, wow, like this is me, like this is what's going on. And what is my response to like, like this situation? Do you understand? One thing that is like I want to talk about in terms of like sex and trauma is hyper arousal through relating to PTSD. And PTSD is basically post-traumatic stress disorder. Let me see if I'm getting that right. Anyways, so that's basically what that means. So when someone has gone through like really traumatic events, like you remember everything just as it happened in your head. And so it's like as if you're kind of like still fighting that game, playing that game over and over again in your head, and playing it like almost like with the same but different strategies, but like it's giving you the same results, So there's never really healing, because like you're repeating the same cycle over and over again. And part of like therapy is about breaking that cycle, breaking that cycle of destruction. So a person that is traumatized, right? A person that is traumatized that has grown, well, maybe you're traumatized in childhood and you've actually developed and you grew up to be someone that's actually quite powerful, you're quite independent. And what you end up doing is that you will source out, a template or a person, kind of like a similar personality of someone that's actually hurt you in the past. And then what you would do is that you will want to avenge, or you want to take your power back, is what they would say. And then once you've gotten that satisfied, the thing is that revenge is never, it's never satisfactory. And that's the thing. It reminds me of this, cartoons. I'm just like, I will give a lot of cartoons references because of like, I'm an animation queen. It's about like, this guy, Octopus, if you know Octopus. Octopus is like, chasing after the minions and wanting to take away their cuteness, because like people didn't really like him. They rejected him growing up. And then like eventually managed to create, it was powerful, all these resources he had. He managed to get off this machine technology to create this big, this huge, amazing technology to suck out the cuteness from the mean is it Minions? No, it's penguins. I'm sorry, it's not Minions, it's penguins. Penguins of Madagascar to suck out the cuteness from those penguins. And what happened was like eventually when he got struck by the radiation thingy of the technology of the machine, it became like super cute, right? It became super cute, and he had achieved his goal finally. Wow, such a grand moment for him. Wow. But guess what? It wasn't enough. Now what he wanted was like, ah, ha, 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 ha. He wanted to do even more. Like, oh, I've done this already. Like, I need to do this again. I need to do that again. I need to do that again. So it's the same repeating cycle over and over again. And for somebody that is traumatized, you don't really get the fact that, wow, like I was a victim, but now I'm actually a villain in another person's story. Someone that didn't even experience, like they didn't deal with what I dealt with. Like they weren't the one that caused about the pain. I just was hurt by somebody that was hurt before. And I'm supposed to stop this cycle, but like, how am I supposed to empower myself to actually stop this cycle? And that's what we're talking about human interaction, right? Talking about empathy, talking about communication, talking about self-sacrifice. And if you go deeper into therapy, they will give you, it means to actually like better understand and give you tools to actually help with your healing, right? So one of the ones, that was suggested, which is exposure therapy, is when they kind of put you in a very similar situation, but in this time around, they create a safeness around you. Like you're in the same situation, but even when your triggers are kind of like coming out and like you're like wanting to shut out again and do the same hurting cycle again, it's like this time around, that it's safe, that there is this stimulation of safeness around you that you cannot deny, your body cannot deny. And it's the idea that even though you're grown, you're Christian, you're born again, you're branded with like, anointing and everything, that there is something still like, something that is still unhealed. And even, what's the name again? Jackie, oh my gosh, let me remember her name. I don't want to use the description that I have in my head right now. Because Jackie Hill Perry was just talking about just how, she also went through trauma, right? And, kind of lost track of what I was actually saying, but just how the trauma kind of takes over your identity, takes over your sexuality, and we're talking about sex and trauma. It takes over your sexuality, whereby someone that hurt you, if the person was a female, you might want to be attracted, and you're a man, you may want to be attracted to the male gender, right? As a way of self-preservation. And it's like, and she talked about how, this trauma literally is, even though you are your spirit, yourself, you are kind of, you're healed, you're wanting to bust out and get out of this toxic cycle, and that's why you're listening. But the fact that your body still remembers, your body still shuts down, your body still wants to be out of that situation and doesn't want to repeat that same hurtful cycle. And it's like, can I actually get my body to the point where that it will feel that, oh, like I'm actually safe? Can you get yourself there? Because and oftentimes, like, trauma hinders our relationship with the Lord. And we're talking about prayer in my women's group, well, our women's group. And we're talking about prayer, and we went really deep in the conversation, just talking about how prayer isn't like you kabashing for 1 hour, 2 hours without intimacy with God. But it's really more about like you just sitting with the Lord, or when you're going through something, just whispering to the Lord that, Lord, like this is hard, I need help, or things like that. Okay. It's more intimacy and including God in your day. And it just dawned on me, like, for prayer to actually be like, so you to actually be experience that intimacy with God through prayer, like you need to be able to experience like safety in your home. Like you need to be in your home and feel safe. Imagine if like, you are in a home where you are been experiencing like, abuse, whether it is domestic abuse or like you've just been experiencing rejection, like you've been experiencing a lot of things, jealousy and dysfunction. Families usually like they create that atmosphere, that toxic atmosphere where like they actually thrive, where you are literally like different, right? On the path of healing. It's kind of hard to be in that space and be like, oh, you want to create that intimacy with the Lord. It will kind of feel very animated, It's the idea that, once someone is traumatized, you need to be able to understand that your body is your body, and what happened to you is not like it's not like because you did anything, it's not about you, like it happened to you and it wasn't supposed to happen, and then just it's quite deep, isn't it? There's a lot of inner work that needs to happen, right, for healing to come to pass. Okay, so I'm just gonna Yeah, and so we talked about communication, and my communication is really important. And just today, I was just thinking about just how communication between you and the person that has actually hurt you is crucial to have that conversation. What happened, like with you? What was your childhood like? And ask crucial questions out of curiosity for your own healing as well. So this interaction that you're having with people is supposed to bring about healing. And you're supposed to actually listen through the conversation, not being defensive, right? About everything. And you need to be curious enough to want to find out the truth, right? So that you can heal. And I feel like for a moment there in my life, like I actually didn't like myself. Like I actually hated myself. And I think I did, right? I did. And I remember that time, like I was actually genuinely, consciously practicing self-love, right? Self-love was something that was actually like, propagated back then, especially during the COVID times, or even before the COVID times, self-love, self-love, self-love. But I want to share something well, something sensitive. I've never shared anything like this before. But anyways, it's okay. It's in the past. The old me is past when all things become new. But there was one time like, I was very much sexually active back then, fornicating, right? And I remember where it was in the act that I just started to burst out. Yeah, I just started crying. I busted out crying. And I knew then and there that there was something wrong with me. Like I kind of knew that there was obviously something wrong with me, but I didn't know to what extent I had been bruised. I didn't know, you know. Those little occurrences, like literally like with like the way the points where like I can say that, that were pointers in showing me that something needed to change in my life. And it's still changing, And so for me, like how I'm not gonna even share too much because I feel like it's like health information, but like part of the ways in which we kind of like respond to trauma, is different, and it's not always a good thing. Like trauma was like a sin that was imposed on you. And so inputs, somebody said something like, jargons in, jargons out. Do you understand? Like jargons in, jargons out. So however way that you're going to actually like sort of like respond to this trauma is going to be like in like rubbish. Do you know what I mean? Like rubbish. Like for someone that was sexually abused, you actually like rubbish was done to you. And so you begin to do rubbish as well. Like a lot of people that were raped will end up like sleeping with multiple partners just because of what's happened to them, right? Something was imposed on them. Or like, maybe you when the rape happened and you're Christian and or you became Christian, right? And things were pretty like you getting closer to the Lord, but it's the situation now is that you have hyper arousal, towards, this just towards this kind of like it's towards the same situation. And I'm talking about the same situation, the same pattern, the same the same engineering, the same characteristics of the person, the same thing trying to happen again. Same cycle. It's like a pattern. And so that's why a lot of people, like when they actually are older, right, they're saying like, oh my God, like I don't know why, but like I feel like I see like I'm repeating the same cycle, like dating the same like toxic guys over and over again. And I used to watch, a therapist channel. I don't watch her anymore. But she basically just talks about how like, we repeat, the same cycle based on like, traumas, it's trauma response. Like the trauma is trying to, it's playing things in our lives, right? And because we're the same people, we react. We're the same people that like when the trauma happened. And so because we've not changed, we've not healed, we're attracting people that are, that have done the same thing to us. Like the person that did that to you was kind of attracted to something like, or like it's just crazy. Like it's just so crazy. Like the way your mannerism and everything is like, well, before did you deserve it to begin with anyways? Like it's just so crazy. And a lot of this situation, a lot of these things that we're talking about is very much generational, right? Like why is it that a woman who was raped before had two daughters and her father, the father of the two children or the two girls ends up molesting them, right? Why is that the same pattern is happening again? Again, it's like a generational curse, right? A generational cycle of unhealed trauma, right? And the question is like, when is the healing process ever going to be over? I feel like it's all about like building networks. If you're able, because again, like collectivity or collectivism is a way to get rid of insecurity. Okay. And that's what we're fighting against in our society. Like we're fighting against poverty, we're fighting against uncertainty. And we still, as a human race, don't want to come together as a people. We don't understand in isolation that we are vulnerable people. We can never heal our traumas alone. It's never going to happen. We can never heal our trauma alone. You can get 10,000 therapists to try to help you, right? Like you need to go back, just like the way Clementine the Least talked about it. She said that you have to go back to the roots. Okay. In the way she described it, she said that, let the indigenous people, let them come together, let them, be the ones to make the decisions. Like you cannot, an outsider or like, you might have been in the community, right? And if stripped yourself from, what it means to be, who you are, wherever you're coming from, right? You've stripped yourself of all of that. And you're coming out as an outsider and saying that you want to build a, a construct of something without wanting to have the input of the people that created you, of the people that have actually like, that you're from in a way. And it's again, I'm going to use the idea that, you are a colonial person or a colonizer, should I say. You are a colonizer in a way. And so I'm always going to say that before you actually make the step of actually wanting to, make a change or do something, like it's always good to be introspective and try to like see yourself and try to see you for you. Like we talked about how a traumatic person ends up being a villain or in the pursuit of self-preservation, right? And end up hurting the template of someone that well resembles the person that actually hurt them. Um, And so, yeah, like, we can be, and especially like the Gen Z generation, millennials, whether you're coming from Africa, I'm talking to immigrants right here, immigrants, a lot of immigrants, even like millennials, like that don't really want to connect to their roots, like you don't want to connect to your roots, you don't want to, heal, you don't want to heal. It is time. I've studied indigenous culture and population, indigenous history. Well, not really deeply, but like enough to know that what happened to them, right, with the residential schools, especially the residential schools, what happened to them, with how the governments treated them, the way they made them to scatter all around, even if we know like it's, you know, a clue that God is punishing those people, right? If God wants to punish the people, He causes them to scatter, right? That's because of that reason. And we've seen that in the life of the Israelite people in the Bible, right? While they begin to lose their identity, many of them, they marry foreigners, right? They were not Israelites. And they forget about their gods, their God Almighty, right? They forget about their God. Or in the indigenous situation, they forget about their gods, right? They forget about like the identity, what makes them, right? Even though you don't accept, this little gods, but you should know your history. You should know like the things that are literally like where you're from, you should be taught. God takes history very seriously. Instead of trying to want to take whatever you know or purposefully wanting to learn whatever you've managed to gather, the objects you've managed to gather. And objects again can be knowledge. Okay, you want to take that which you know, and what you want to do is that you want to recreate a world that is absent from the people that actually own it. Because now you're saying that you're no longer part of them, right? You're kind of like excluding yourself. And this is like also like, it's very particular to like, Africans or like wherever you are from, if you're not in your original country, like, it's like, it's about you. It's about you. What are you doing to help? Mm? And yeah, one thing that just flashed to my mind was this girl. I don't remember her name. Well, that's quite sad. She's a Nigerian influencer. Like she's from the UK. Uh, uh, I don't remember her name. She basically did a documentary. She went to her a family house and she showed us how poor they were and just how like literally came from very humble beginning, right? She showed us everything. That is a bold step towards healing. And just think about it, like without healing, like do you know what I mean? Like many indigenous people like end up drinking, getting frustrated, doing all sorts of things. Yeah, drugs. So to know the power that you have, okay? Um, and oftentimes people will give you power over them because they love you. over the emotions. They'll give you that space in their lives. So how are you making sure that you're taking care of that space? You are responsible for animals. You're responsible for your neighbors. You're responsible for your family members that you don't like so much. And I'm going to share something again. And so just like this painting here, this indigenous painting of Travis Schilling, you see that there is a power, and I'm talking about this thing here. This power here, forces that are against humanity. The machine that you see here, usually like a machine is oftentimes like, it's not just the machine itself. A machine can only function when there's a human being. A machine functions with the different facets of like, making a machine to work. So I remember Clementine Delise talked about the fact that if humans are very close, if there's a close interaction with like, any machine-like structure, like it means that, or a painting, if they're close to a painting, they've become one with the system, right? They become one with the system. And you can see this how literally like on top of that whole system, controlling it. And the only reason why this how is there is to cause about it to stop. Because if you look at that, if you look at it very well, it's literally landing on top of the things on the part that will literally cause it to move and to operate freely. Okay. And so you can see that these forces are there to bring about the demise of humanity. They're there to bring about destruction. They're there to bring about people hurting people. They're there to stop the work of the Lord. The Lord said, man, he has equipped man in all righteousness, that we should go out there to build his cities. The Lord is building something, and you can see this owl literally causing about an interference. And this is going to be through that dream, that dream that you had, that, even if you saw somebody chasing you or something like that, like you can pray, but the type of prayer that you pray. And this is the whole thing that we need to talk about too, prayer and everything. We can pray according to the word of the Lord. That's what I can say, Is violence necessary? Absolutely, but we need to know when, right? So we need to know. The Bible talks about we fight not against flesh. We fight against powers and principalities. Okay, let me see the scripture again. We fight against powers and principalities. So it's not that person that is doing the harm. These are powers and principality that are doing it. We fight not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, powers, against powers, against rulers of the darkness of this world, and against spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly places. Okay? This is what is going on. So when one person is frustrating you and things like that, like, no, it's not that person. There are forces. Even Tony Blair, in his book, in his biography, talked about how the fact that Tony Blair tried for UK. He tried. And it said in his book that he knows that what is going on in the UK is not physical, that it's spiritual. In the later parts of his book, it's like the end. After he had told us everything that he's done and everything, he said the problem with the UK system is nothing physical. Like, this thing is actually quite spiritual. And so we need to be good leaders. A good leader is the one that is very, very spiritually, versed. You're versed in the word of the Lord. Not just that, you're versed spiritually. And I'm talking about the fact that you know how demons operate. Do you understand what I mean? A demon knows like patterns. Familiar spirits they know the patterns of your life, of the ancestors, and previous ancestors, they know all this information. They thrive in information building, gathering to use against you. They know that if I was to make person A to do this, person B would think this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just do this and make a conclusion and bring about discord between the two. He did this in the dream as well. These are forces fighting against the city from being built, just like Sanballat and Tobiah, bringing about discord. A true leader is the one that is after peace. A true leader is the one that's able to look at a witch in the eye and see Christ in her and being like, I know that you can change. And know that there are forces that have capitalized on our weakness or on his weakness. And I talked about the fact that even the rich in this world, like they are, even check what Jesus Christ says about them. Check what Jesus Christ says about them. They will never make it into the kingdom of God. Like it's hard for a rich man. It's hard for what was this just analogy? Let's check in the word. Let's check in the word. He said it's easy for a camel. I think that was what he said. He said, Matthew chapter 19, verse 23 to 26, Jesus Christ said to his disciples, verily I say unto you, it is hard for a rich man to enter into the kingdom of heaven. And again, I say unto you, it is easier for a camel to go through a needle's eye than for a rich man to enter into the kingdom of God. It's hard. The principalities that are fighting against this one is big. Because again, a rich man is not one to want to, surrender the wealth. In the goal of being a leader, or in the pursuit of leadership, or in the position of leadership, what you oftentimes need to do is you need to be able to sacrifice everything. If somebody is chasing you in the dream and you see the person's face, like, do you go and just do something crazy? Like, you need to be able to act from a place of authority and the word of the Lord to bring about that discourse, interaction, to bring about peace, reconciliation, preaching the word of the Lord to someone that is not evil. That is the conversation that we're having today. And I think we've had that conversation, I believe. So this is about learning. Last session I would talk about, what she actually said regarding creating an atmosphere of learning, okay? Learning, about the people that God has put in your ecosystem. And she talked about presentation, talked about, learning, not just learning to exploit people, but learning to bring about restitution, right? Learning so that you can actually, you might have something that belongs to someone, because you don't see yourself as a villain. You might have something that belongs to someone. So are you able to introspectively see and check and search and be like, okay, let me give this person give this thing to what belongs to someone, give this to what belongs to someone, able to do that. Learning is about bringing about restitution. Learning about people also is to help them, to bring about the work of restoration as well. The Lord will lead you as you go. And she talked about how, we need to be able to create that atmosphere of presentation, an atmosphere of to promote the opportunity for learning. So she talked about staging, talked about lighting, heat, temperature, right? Different, aspects of scenario, what's the word again? Scenery analysis, I guess. Scenery analysis or scenery presentation, right? Being able to do that to bring about, more, because guess what? The kingdom of darkness, they use it when they're bringing about stimulations to you. I'm giving you that perfect deceptive information, or bringing you into some weird, vivid dream to show you nonsense, right? Or to try to alter your identity. So yeah, we can take advantage of like, certain things and learn and try to like implement those things to bring about, like how have you kind of staged the room to bring about, and it requires intentionality. Like you want to have a conversation with someone that has hurt you. Like, do you just bring the person into a very cold room, the room like that would all those things, those little things, they actually like affect, emotions and accountability, vulnerability, and things like that. So, guys, I think that's actually like, that's the end of the discussion that we had today. I know that you learned something, right? That uh that power can be intoxicating, but also like can be used as a way of defense. We see that constantly to help to reduce insecurity, the need of the need of the collective, right, to reduce insecurity, right? Um, but can we actually use power for a good reason, right? And Jesus Christ did not just say that we should create the church for just anything, like he did it because, like because he wants the people to be powerful themselves. Um, and so yeah, like we need to be able to have that power to decide the standards that we will live by, and not someone out there because they have some, fetish, or idol somewhere that they've collected from Guinea, and they're using those items and using the knowledge behind those items to bring about attacks against you from the dream, to try to hinder your own, identity, hinder your own progress, hinder your life, and take life away from you. All right. That's how wicked and evil these things are. And it's like, well, you need to be powerful, right? Through the word of the Lord to be able to define your own standards. So, guys, thank you so much for watching. Again, my name is Amdati Yokufushola. I will see you in the next one. Take care of yourself. Bye.